Rebuilding the Temple, Understanding Jesus' Prophecy. Welcome to today's exploration into one of the most profound declarations made by Jesus Christ, found in the Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 19-21. Here, Jesus tells his audience, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." To many listeners of his time, this puzzled statement seemed an impossible claim. What did Jesus mean by these words? Today we embark on a journey to unravel this statement, uncovering the deeper spiritual truths it holds. To understand Jesus' words, we first need to consider the audience's perspective. At the time Jesus spoke, his listeners took his statement literally. They believed he referred to the grand Herodian temple in Jerusalem, a mammoth architectural feat that took decades to build. This temple was a centerpiece of Jewish religious and cultural life, an embodiment of their faith. The idea of rebuilding such a structure in 3 days seemed not only impossible, but outright ludicrous. However, as we delve deeper, we begin to understand that Jesus was speaking metaphorically. The temple he referred to was not the physical edifice of stone, but his own body. By identifying himself as the temple, Jesus was conveying a message packed with layers of spiritual meaning. This metaphor invites us to see beyond the physical and embrace the spiritual journey that Jesus was guiding his followers through. To fully grasp the depth of Jesus' metaphor, it's essential to appreciate the role of the temple in Jewish tradition. For centuries, the temple stood as the sacred dwelling place of God on earth, where divine glory was believed to reside. It was where people came to worship, make sacrifices, and commune with God. It was the heart of Jewish religious life, a symbol of their covenant with God. In his declaration, Jesus redefined this understanding by positioning himself as the new temple. This wasn't a simple change of venue. It was a revolutionary shift in how humanity would interact with the divine. Jesus proclaimed himself as the new focal point where God and humanity would meet. This transition from physical temple to spiritual presence marked a profound shift in spiritual cosmology, a radical invitation to see God in Jesus rather than in brick and mortar. Jesus' statement was as radical as it was transformative. In declaring his body the temple, he was challenging established religious doctrines and practices. For the Jewish leaders and many followers bound by tradition, this was a bold claim that few could immediately accept. Jesus' perspective upended centuries of religious thinking and tradition, inviting believers to step away from rituals tied to a location and towards a relationship centered on faith in him. Jesus' prophecy wasn't just a claim about his identity, it was directly linked to the events of his crucifixion and resurrection. The phrase, "in 3 days," becomes significant here, signifying the timeline between his death on the cross and his victorious resurrection. It was during this time that Jesus demonstrated the ultimate sacrifice and power, laying the foundation for a new way of understanding his promise, a hope that emerged through resurrection. The resurrection itself is the keystone of Jesus' declaration, the ultimate proof of his divine authority. Rising from the dead was not just a miraculous event, but a bold affirmation of his authority over life and death. It validated every claim he made about being the Son of God and the embodiment of God's presence on earth. Through his resurrection, Jesus showcased a power that transcended human understanding, solidifying his identity and mission for all who would believe. Jesus' actions established a new covenant between God and humanity. This covenant transcended the old ways of worship centered around temple rituals and sacrificial systems. Instead, it introduced a direct relationship with God through faith in Jesus Christ himself. This shift from a physical temple to a Christ-centered faith emphasizes an internal spiritual temple within each believer. With this new covenant came a redefined relationship with God. Believers were called to shift their focus from the external trappings of faith to an internal, personal relationship with Jesus. This profound shift changed the landscape of religious practice and understanding in early Christianity, emphasizing personal faith and direct communion with God without the need for an intermediary temple structure. Jesus' prophecy is more than a historical declaration. It's an ongoing invitation to believers to see his crucifixion and resurrection as transformative spiritual truths. It is a call to rethink the foundations of faith, moving them beyond the physical into a deeper spiritual realm. It challenges believers to reimagine their relationship with the divine, placing faith in the resurrected Christ as the center of their spiritual lives. The spiritual implications of Jesus' prophecy are vast and profound. By understanding his body as the temple, believers are invited to see themselves as part of this spiritual temple, with Christ as the cornerstone. This understanding encourages a living, dynamic faith that grows and deepens over time, strengthening the believer's relationship with God in a personal and transformative way. In conclusion, Jesus' statement in John 2:19-21 offers much more than a glimpse into his identity. It invites us into a deeper understanding of faith itself. It calls us to look beyond the physical walls of tradition and religion, embracing a personal and spiritual relationship with God through Jesus Christ. As believers, the call is to explore this relationship, experiencing the living presence of God within and through Jesus. This prophecy remains as relevant today as it was during his time, encouraging each of us to build our faith on the resurrected Christ, who is our eternal temple.